Yeshua, and we did Aleph and Beis, where the Rebbe explains the difference between the spies that Moshe Rabbeinu sent and the spies that Yeshua sent. And the difference is in two things. Number one, Yeshua sent spies only to one city, Yericho. On the other hand, Moshe Rabbeinu sent spies that they should walk through the entire country. That's one difference. And the second difference is that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he sent the spies, it was on his own initiative. And even when he asked Hashem, Hashem said, I'm not telling you to do this. If you want to send spies, go ahead. In the case of Yeshua, he was commanded by Hashem to send the spies. And the Rebbe explains that the difference between these two stories is that Moshe Rabbeinu, he sent the spies to conquer Eretz Yisrael. In both cases, in Moshe and Yeshua, what was being accomplished spiritually is to empower us to conquer our own personal land, which means to conquer our own Nefesh Bahamis, our Guf, and to redirect everything within us towards Hashem. But there are two different paths, or two different levels. One is the one of Yeshua, and the other is the one of Moshe. And the difference is, Yeshua sent them to conquer Yericho. The Rebbe explains Yericho represents thought, speech, and action. Moshe Rabbeinu sent them all over the entire country, because the entire land of Israel is called the land of the seven nations, which represent the seven emotions. And here we're talking about not to conquer thought, speech, and action, but to conquer internally the emotions of a person and transform them towards Hashem. And that's the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't commanded, because this can be a command for every person. Not every person is on the level that they can accomplish transforming their emotions internally. Yeshua, on the other hand, being that the issue at hand is to conquer thought, speech, and action, there is a command, because that's something that everybody is capable of doing. To explain this further, we're going to go into Oz Gimel. Torah is eternal. So from this it's understood, this story in the Torah, that the Meraglim was sent by Moshe, the way he did it, is also relevant to every person. It's eternal. Not only is it eternal what Yeshua did, that everybody is capable of conquering their thought, speech, and action, but it must be that even what Moshe Rabbeinu did in some way applies to every single person. How's that? So we can understand this by first prefacing what it says in Tanya. Tzadikim ubeinanim. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya talks about the difference between tzadikim and beinanim. As we know, that the Tanya is called Sefer Shel Beinanim, the book of the Beinanim. And in Tanya explains that there are two people, both could be at a very high level of serving Hashem, yet one is called a tzaddik, and the other one is called a beinani. And what is the difference? Shavedis ha-beinanim hi be'ike belevushi ha-nefesh. The beinani, his avodah, is mainly on the garments of the soul, machshava, dibur, umaisa, to be in control of thought, speech, and action, to be in control, to do everything that's necessary to do, that's appropriate to do in thought, speech, and action, and to be in control, not to do anything which is inappropriate, not in thought, not in speech, and not in action. And that's why the level of Beinani is something that every person could relate to. Even if the heart has a desire for something, the heart is craving and wants something that's a taiva, a certain physical pleasure. A person is capable to be in control and to discipline himself and not allow that desire that he has to express itself either in thought or speech and action. He's able to control himself to not think willingly about whatever it is that's inappropriate to be thinking about, not to entertain my thoughts with things that are inappropriate. Not only that, but a person is capable to completely divert his mind from the subject and focus on a different subject completely. Also going back to explain this more, let me just say the next paragraph. However, the avodah of tzaddikim is different. Tzaddikim, their avodah is not so much with thought, speech, and action. They have achieved that already. They're totally in control of their thoughts and speech and action. Their avodah is mainly with midas shebelev, the emotions of the heart, love for Hashem, and fear and awe of Hashem. Not every person has the merit that they should be able to have that control. Things that have to do with the heart, feelings of the heart, how to feel, not every person is in control of being able to sort of command their heart to feel one way or another way. So let's go over and understand this, and then we'll see how it applies to us. So what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, one of the things it's based on is where there's a pasuk where it says, Barasa tzadikim, Hashem, you created tzadikim, and you created those that are not tzadikim. And the Alter Rebbe asks, how can we say that? It's known, and not just known, but this is one of the most basic principles in Judaism, is that everything that we do in our lives it needs to be done with the bechira chofshis, with free choice. Hashem wants us to observe the Torah and the mitzvahs with our free choice. How could we say that Hashem created people and already sort of created them to be tzaddikim? That would mean that there was no free choice. This person is a tzaddik and this person is not a tzaddik. And the Alter Rebbe explains that's not what it means. It means Hashem created certain people that they have a soul, a neshama, of a much higher spiritual caliber. And those people are called tzaddikim. And there are other people, in fact, most people don't have that special neshama, and they are called beinanim. They'll have the capacity to reach a certain level spiritually, but not to reach the level of tzaddikim. So people are created not in a way that they're already tzaddikim. They're created in a way that they still have to make the choices. But the potential of a tzaddik means a potential of a person that he's capable of reaching a much higher spiritual level, and the other person who's a beinani can't reach that high level. And what is the high level? The high level is that a tzaddik is someone who is capable of changing sort of his personality, like changing his spiritual chemistry internally. And a beinani, which is, again, the majority of people in the world, don't have that capacity. What they can do is they can control their feelings, they can discipline their feelings, but they don't have necessarily the ability to change things internally. In other words, just like Hashem created, let's say, humans, and he created birds that fly. The fact that a human can't fly is not because they're not trying hard enough, they're not working hard enough. Humans were not created with the ability to fly. Hashem didn't create us with wings, and a little tiny bird has the ability to fly more than a human being because it was given that nature. So our neshamas, the neshamas of the majority of people, was not given this ability to be able to transform ourselves internally, that we are completely transformed with love for Hashem and other feelings for Hashem. Tzaddikim are people that were created with that ability. And when they work on themselves, when they work hard on self-refinement and to grow spiritually, they can reach a level where they can be totally transformed internally. So most people, we can have the feelings that we have. We are who we are, and we have our natural way that we feel about things, but we have the power to be in control. And there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was once sitting by the table. I think it says that it was Shavuos actually. And he wasn't in that high spirit that he usually is. So the students of the Baal Shem Tov, who were very close to him, this was his close circle of students called Chavrai Kadisha, they tried to do everything they knew to do in order to raise the spirits of the Baal Shem Tov, to bring in a more simcha mode. And of course, they were great tzaddikim, so they knew what to do. But no matter what they did, nothing changed. All of a sudden, someone walked into the room. His name was Reb David, a simple Jew. And the Baal Shem Tov broke into a smile, called him over. He gave him wine from his own personal Kiddush cup. Could be also gave him a piece of challah. And the Baal Shem Tov's mood totally was transformed. And the students were sitting there and thinking to themselves, how does this make sense? Here we are, and they knew who they were, they knew their greatness, and yet they could not bring the Baal Shem Tov to change, to be in this happy mood. And here a person walks in who is not only not on their level, but hardly on any level, just a simple Jew. And he walks in and the Baal Shem Tov, he accomplishes what all of them together couldn't accomplish. Baal Shem Tov knew what they were thinking, and he sent this person, Rabbi David, out on an errand to do something. And he was out on the errand, the Baal Shem Tov said to the students, you know who this person is? And he said, let me tell you something about him. He wanted very much to have an esrog that's really a beautiful esrog. But he didn't have the money to afford it. And he began saving money, penny to penny. He could only put away 1 penny or 2 pennies, and he was hoping would accumulate eventually to enough money to buy a beautiful esrog. I don't know if this was over the course of a year, or over the course of a few years, but eventually all the little monies added up, and he now had the money to buy a beautiful esrog. That wasn't so simple. To get the beautiful esrog, he had to travel somewhere. And he couldn't afford to travel the regular way, so the journey was not so easy for him until he got there. And he bought the beautiful esrog, and he was very, very excited. And when he came home, he was so excited, he showed his wife the beautiful esrog that he had. She looked at the esrog, and she realized right away, so this is a beautiful esrog, which means an expensive esrog. And she began screaming at him, we need money to buy the essential foods for the children. And you go ahead and you spend all that money on a beautiful esrog? And she went into a rage. She got so angry that she bit the top part of the esrog, which is called the pitum. And when you bite that off, and you take it off, the esrog becomes destroyed. You can imagine that he was devastated. Who knows how long it took him to save up all the money to get this esrog? And after that, he had to travel who knows where till he finally got the esrog. And now 1 second, she just ruined everything. And he said to himself that he's not going to let himself get angry and get upset. Perhaps he doesn't deserve to have a beautiful esrog. In fact, he didn't have any money to buy any esrog, and he only could be part of the community esrog. In those days, it wasn't so easy for everyone to have their own esrog. So there was an esrog that belonged to the community, and everybody had to pay a little bit of money to be part of it. And he didn't even have that. He had to take some items from the house, give it into a pawn shop, and get the money to be even a partner with an esrog. And the Baal Shem Tov said that the pleasure in heaven from this person, that he contained himself, not to lose his temper, not to be angry, this pleasure was equivalent to the pleasure of Avraham Avinu at the Akedah. And that's why the Baal Shem Tov was so excited and became in such a good frame of mind when he saw this person walk into the room. So here it's possible for something to happen. Person's normal human reaction is to be angry and very angry. But I have the power and have the capacity to be totally in control. And the same is with all physical feelings, pleasure, if a person is attracted to something, person's craving to something, no matter what it is and how it is, we have the power to control ourselves.
So, excuse me, one question. So potentially we can have a person with a tzaddik soul that didn't bring himself to be a tzaddik, didn't work to his potential.
Right, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Which means he has the soul, he has the ability, but if he makes the wrong choices, he will not become a tzaddik.
Mm-hmm.
Makes the right choices, he has the ability to reach a place that others can't reach. So now this applies to thought, speech, and action. Even thought, where I might think, okay, a person can control what they do it or not do it. Like in this case, not be angry, which means I won't say anything that's anger. I won't act in an angry way. But how could you affect thought? The thoughts in the head are angry thoughts. How can that be controlled? And the answer is, the Alter Rebbe says a person could divert his mind completely. This is something we spoke about at different occasions, that a person is capable of stopping to think about any subject. The only problem is we don't usually do it the right way. And just to remind you again, because I know we spoke about this in class earlier in the year, is that the Alter Rebbe uses an expression in Tanya to push away the thoughts with two hands, which means there's a way of pushing a thought away with one hand. And the right way to do it is to push away with two hands. And what is the difference? When a thought comes to a person, which is an inappropriate thought, whether it's thoughts about doubting Hashem, thoughts of anger, thoughts of jealousy, thoughts that are inappropriate in any other way, there's two ways to stop myself. One is I tell myself that this is not okay, this is prohibited, and I should stop thinking these thoughts. And I can tell myself why I should stop thinking and why it's prohibited and what the consequences could be or the punishment could be. And I'm thinking about that in order to get myself to stop thinking. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. Because even though I'm giving myself all these reasons why to stop thinking, but the thought will keep coming back. Because the mere fact that I'm focusing on it, that in itself encourages these thoughts to keep coming back. The right way is, that's called pushing it away with one hand, but with one hand, I'm still holding on to it. The mere fact that I'm paying attention to it, even though it's negative attention, I'm telling myself how bad the thought is, how inappropriate the thought is, how it should be rejected, but I'm still focusing on the thought. The other possibility is to push away with two hands, which means that a person switches and focuses on a different subject completely. And by doing that, you can't think about two things at the same time. Then automatically the other thought leaves my mind. And when a person does that, slowly and slowly, the thought stops reoccurring because I'm not giving it attention. I usually use the mushal that if a person comes knocking at my door and it's somebody that I really don't want to spend time with, and they knock at the door, but I want to be nice, I open the door and I invite them in and I give them cake and coffee and I spend 2 hours talking to them, can expect that tomorrow they're going to come back again. And then if I do the same thing tomorrow, after tomorrow they'll come back again. So if a negative thought comes to a person and I entertain that thought, that in itself strengthens the thought and encourages that thought to keep reoccurring and coming back. What if a person has someone knocking on the door? I don't invite them in, but I walk over to the door and I tell them that I can't really speak to them. I don't have time for them and I'm very busy now. And you spend an hour on the door explaining to them why you can't really spend time with them or why you can't invite them in. Again, even though you didn't invite them in, but by standing by the door and talking to them, you gave them it's negative, but you gave them their attention. And as a result of that, that person is going to come back again and occupy your time. So how is it possible to discourage this person from not coming back at all? Very simple. If I ignore, I don't answer the doorbell, I don't go to the door, I ignore completely. And then after 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, they'll stop coming back. And the same is with a thought. Ignoring a thought means not to think about it, not in a positive way, and not even thinking about rejecting it, just changing the subject completely, focusing on something else completely, and then it will stop reoccurring. So we can even be in control of thought, not just speech and action. And that is what the average person could do. The tzaddik is on a higher level. He can actually transform himself that he doesn't feel jealousy, he doesn't feel anger, he doesn't feel a desire for the physical pleasures that ordinary people have desires for. And internally, he just becomes like a different kind of a person. I mean, again, to use the example of Avraham Avinu, imagine Hashem tells him that he should take his one and only son that was born to him at the age of 100 years old, take this one and only son and bring him as a korban. And Avraham Avinu not only goes to do this, but he does it with simcha. He wakes up early in the morning, which means that his love for Hashem was so high and so great that even though the issue at hand was sacrificing his son, but being that he knew this is what Hashem wants, he was excited to do it, which means the love for Hashem completely was able to override the normal, natural feelings of a father to a son. And let's not forget, we're talking about Avraham Avinu, whose nature was chesed, kindness. He was the epitome of kindness. He was the kindness in the highest level. His heart to help people, to be kind to people, was something that no one could compare to. And this is his one and only son that he waited for so many years. And yet the love for Hashem took over completely. That means that internally, he became a different kind of a person. That's a tzaddik. That his love for Hashem became his essence. And then a tzaddik is constantly rising to higher and higher levels in this avodah. So this is the difference. That a Beinoni is someone who can only control thought, speech, and action. And a tzaddik is somebody that can totally transform themselves internally. And that is love for Hashem is like the love we feel for things that are physical that we can relate to. And his avodah is constantly going higher and deeper and developing deeper levels and deeper layers of love. And but he's not focusing on thought, speech, and action because that's already a done deal. I remember reading a story in a sikh of the Frierdiker Rebbe that the person who was chosen by his father, the Rebbe Rashab, to teach him Chassidus, his name was Rashbatz, Reb Shmuel Betzalel. This Reb Shmuel Betzalel was a Chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe Marash, and later the Rebbe Rashab. But he himself studied under someone called Reb Michal Apotzker, who was a Chassid of the Alter Rebbe. And this Chassid wasn't an ordinary Chassid, he was also on a very high level, to the extent that the Rebbe Rashab said angels would be waiting for him to send them on some sort of a mission. So we're talking about someone who was on a very high level. In fact, one of the stories that also indicate that he was on a higher level, he was the level of a tzaddik, he had Ruach HaKodesh, was the story of when this student, Rashbatz, came for the first time to the city of Lubavitch. He studied under this Reb Michal for a year and a half, and then he said, now's the time you can go to Lubavitch. He was all ready, and he came to Lubavitch. He traveled for a number of days, and he arrived in the city of Lubavitch early in the morning. He was very tired. He sat down somewhere in the shul and he fell asleep. And then he woke up hearing somebody making an announcement. And he realized this was the Rebbe's Gabbai, the Rebbe's secretary. And he said, the Rebbe is asking, is there anybody here that came from Reb Michal Apotzker? And he realized that's him. The Rebbe is asking if someone is here that came from that chassid. And he said, me. And he said, quick, come into the Rebbe's room. Now Reb Michal said to this Rashbatz, I'm giving you an envelope, and you give this over to the Rebbe, but don't open the envelope. Well, we know what happens when you tell somebody don't. He was very curious what this big chassid could be writing to his Rebbe. And he opened the envelope. But to his surprise, there was a blank piece of paper there, nothing written. When he came into the room of the Tzemach Tzedek asked, did Reb Michal send you something for me? And he said, yes. And he pulled out the envelope and gave it to the Rebbe. The Rebbe opened the envelope, looked at it and said, did you open the envelope? The Rebbe realized right away that he opened the envelope. And we're talking about something which is supernatural. So this is a chassid of very high caliber. And he turned to this student one day, to Rashbatz, and he said to him, you think that by observing me, you're really observing a chassid. Nah. We are like, meaning himself and his contemporaries, we're like dried out twigs. I, in my life, have merited to see real chassidim. What do you mean, dried out twigs? He wasn't saying he's not a big chassid because he does something wrong, chas v'sholem. But in terms of internally, that love and emotion for Hashem, he felt that the feeling that he has compared to the people that he knew was like a dried out twig that has no juice in it whatsoever. He was talking about the emotion, the enthusiasm, the feelings. And the Rashbatz concluded that we would wish upon ourselves to have the feelings that he had. But nevertheless, he himself, when he looked at people that had deeper feelings, felt like he was a dried out twig. So when it comes to feeling, this is something where there are infinite levels of depth in the soul, and one could continuously grow more and more. And that's the avodah of tzaddikim. So this, he says, not everybody has the ability to go that deep, and therefore what we can do is change thought, speech, and action. Now we're on page 30, towards the end of Ois Gimel, and let's do that last paragraph. That's relevant here.
I have a question.
Yes?
I don't know if you mentioned it in the beginning of yesterday's class, or today's, but we're learning about like the avodah of tzaddikim from the Meraglim, which was like what we see as such a negative thing on the surface. Like like, why are we learning the Avodah Tzadikim through something that was not necessarily so positive?
Well, again, the negative part was that they didn't trust that they could accomplish what they were charged to accomplish. It's not, in other words, first of all, it's a story in the Chumash. So everything in the Chumash, whether it's positive or negative, we have to learn from it. What we learn from that story is not that there's something wrong with this Avodah. The story what we learn from that story is that they should have trusted Moshe Rabbeinu, that they have the ability and the capacity to do what they were told to do. So, if anything, it's only encouraging us even more to do the Avodah that we need to do, every person on their level.
Okay, thank you.
So now we just finished saying that a Beinoni can't be a tzaddik, doesn't have the capacity. It's like a human being can't fly. But look what the Rebbe concludes with Ella. Nevertheless, that every person is given an oath that there should be a tzaddik. That's how the Tanya starts off, that before a person is born, they're given an oath. And the oath is, it should be a tzaddik and not a rasha. The Alter Rebbe explains that it means that you can, to be, every person has the capacity to be a Beinoni. So why does it say you're given an oath to be a tzaddik? You can't, not everybody could be a tzaddik. And these are the words of the Alter Rebbe in chapter 14. Shekol echad tzareh gam lishtadel b'avedas hatzadikim, that every person should make an effort to even in some way be like the Avodah of Tzadikim, Kimvur b'ta'arucha b'tanya, like it says in Tanya. And what does the Alter Rebbe explain there? That every person could nevertheless work on themselves, that at least to some degree they're creating a change internally, even if it's superficial, but it'll be something similar to the Avodah of Tzaddik. Let's use an example. Let's say it comes Yontiv, he's supposed to be b'simcha. And I don't feel in my heart the simcha. So first of all, I have to do whatever has to be done. So I daven, I say the words, I eat the meal, I do everything that has to be done. But what about that internal feeling of joy? I just don't feel it. And the answer is, you sing, you dance, you clap your hands, you join with other people that are singing. And generally speaking, if you sort of immerse yourself into that, you'll feel a little bit of more simcha. Now, even though that feeling is not very deep, and to some extent it's superficial, look, I had to sort of make myself get there. It wasn't natural, like the natural simcha that a person has. When a person hears the news that they won a $50 million lottery, they don't have to sing or dance or clap their hands to get them to feel excited. The excitement, it comes natural. And the same with other physical pleasures, they come natural. So by a tzaddik, when Yontif comes around, they're naturally besimcha. They're in such joy that it's just naturally, it's bursting. This person's a Beinoni, and nevertheless, what he can do is do things that I should experience the feeling of simcha somewhat internally. Or the same with the opposite, that tzaddikim not only don't do things that are negative, but they actually feel very strong rejection emotionally towards something which is negative. That they're disgusted by things which are negative. Like there's a story with the chassid of the Alter Rebbe. His name was Rabbi Kletzker. And he used to do business with noblemen. He was in the lumber business. And one time he came to a nobleman, and the nobleman was curious to see, is this person really so righteous? You know, is it a chassid? And he wanted to test him. Naturally, when you come to someone, even to do business, they put something down on the table. He can't put down food, other food because he keeps kosher, but he put down fruits or vegetables. And his daughter was the one who brought the food into the room. And he told her to walk in dressed not so tznizik, according to those standards of those days. And he wanted to see how this person would react. And when she walked in the room and he saw her, he became physically nauseous, and he threw up. And he realizes not to start up with these kind of people. But it means that his feeling of rejection, and he was so repulsed by this thing spiritually, like we would be repulsed, it would be something that's physically repulsive. So a Beinoni can't necessarily reach that level. But again, just like with Simcha, we can do things to sort of generate at least superficially some sort of a feeling internally. We can do the same with this, to think about how negative it is and how repulsive it is and how low it is, and to not only not do it, but to, in the mind and in the heart, we feel a certain feeling, even if it's superficial, that's similar to what a tzaddik feels. And that's what the tzaddik means. The Alter Rebbe says something even greater than that, that sometimes it's possible that if a person really, truly works hard on trying to develop that kind of a feeling, he might be given a gift. And what's the gift? The gift is that even though he doesn't have that neshama, he doesn't have the capacity, he doesn't have that chemistry in him, sometimes Hashem will have the neshama of a tzaddik be sort of injected in the neshama of a regular person. A certain aspect of the neshama of a tzaddik would be injected in a regular person. And when that happens, that empowers the person and enables that person to feel internally the same as a tzaddik, at least temporarily. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, you do your part. Try and make an effort to feel internally the way tzaddik feels. Love and excitement and joy for godly things, and the opposite feelings of rejection, and you're repulsed by the negative things. And number one, that itself will be fulfilling the oath. And number two, you might even merit that Hashem would give you the ability to reach that level. So based on this, we can now understand what we said before, that even though conquering the land of Canaan, which means transforming our emotions, is not for everybody. And that's why there was no command, because you can't expect everybody to do that. And this is Moshe Rabbeinu and his generation, where people were on a higher level. But if it's written in Torah, that means to some extent, it's relevant to everyone. And this is the answer. The Alter Rebbe says in chapter 14 in Tanya, that everybody should and could make an effort, at least to some degree, to feel in some way similar to a tzaddik. That not only I do what's right, but I feel that way. And not only I stay away from things that are negative, but internally, I'm totally repulsed by things that are negative, at least to an extent that a person could create that maybe on some superficial level. So this is the conclusion. Let's do Dalet. Dalet is concluding what I just said to you. We'll do it inside. This is the reason why the command Laharik Shiva Amamin, to eliminate the 7 nations, to conquer the land, is Nitzchi B'chol Der, is something eternal. Even though conquering the land of the 7 nations, which means transforming the 7 midas of the Nefesh of Bahamas, that internally everything is transformed, and the chesed, the gvura, the teferes, my love, my feelings, my joy, my excitement, everything is for Hashem. Even though in Yizeh shaykh l'tzadikim, it's only for tzadikim, ve'en kol adam zeichel hazeh, and not everybody has the merit, and not everybody has the soul that has that capacity. But nevertheless, why is it applied to everyone? Ki kol echad ve'echad miYisrael, every one of us, tzarich laseis, kol ma shebicholtai, should do everything within their capacity, to fulfill the oath which was given before the person came into this world. To hit tzaddik, you should be a tzaddik. Make an effort to be a tzaddik. And this is why the story of sending Meraglim is written in the Torah, and Torah is Heirah. We know the Torah is not Chas Hashem, a history book. Every portion of Torah, and every line, every sentence, every word is called Torah. Torah means directive. It's teaching us something of what we need to do. So what is it teaching us? Every one of us could spy, scout out, so to speak, examine our midas. That even internally I should direct it towards Hashem. But even though the Torah says try to do that, but by them, it says it's on your own initiative. I'm not commanding you, because to command can only be something that a person could really fulfill. The command that everyone is commanded to do is control their thought, speech, and action. And that's Yericha. That's something that every person has the capacity, every person has the free choice. But to change the feelings of the heart, that we don't necessarily have it. In fact, the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that the Beinoni could be very broken and very distraught. What am I doing? I'm working my whole life for years and years, and I haven't really changed internally. And the Alter Rebbe said that you should realize this in itself is what Hashem wants. There should be people that are not angels, and they're not tzaddikim, people that are regular people like ourselves, and have ordinary human feelings, and yet to discipline them and control them. And that gives Hashem tremendous pleasure. Yes, there's a pleasure Hashem has from people who transform themselves totally internally. But there's another level of pleasure Hashem has, dafka from humans who have human feelings and desires and impulses that are the way we are as humans. And in spite of that, we totally control iskafia. That gives Hashem the greatest pleasure. We'll stop here to be continued tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank